Welcome everybody to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and today marks the 100th episode of this podcast. I did not know that I'd be getting to this point nearly a couple years ago, but I'm here, and as I promised, I wanted to keep something special for myself as the topic for the 100th episode. There weren't all that many options, really. It would have been something like Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger maybe, but in the back of my mind, I kind of already knew. It just so happened that I was playing Persona 4 Golden for the other channel at the time I recorded this, and it just made sense. And especially now that it is in my mind, I finished the recordings at 100 some episodes and everything's been done. It gives me absolutely the best perspective to talk about this, so this ends up being a post-review show and the 100th episode, because I could have done this regardless, but I do think a lot of the things that have happened did change my opinion. Not all that much, but enough that things worked. That being said, I will throw the spoiler tag on here because by the time this episode shows up, I don't think we'll be finished with the uploads as of yet. I think we'll be like right near the end. So maybe we'll get the last bits, the last vestiges of the playthrough. But just for reference, if you've never played Persona 4 or haven't finished my playthrough of it, this is a spoiler to encompass the entire thing. That being said, this is one of my favorite games of all time, and I've said this, and Persona has that special place. It was Persona 3 that initially got me into the franchise, and then I veered into SMT after Persona 3 and 4. But with all the news at time of recording of Persona 3 Reload and all the other fun junk, I mean, the tactical game for Persona 5 aside, like, yeah, whatever. All the side content for Persona 5, that's great. But Persona 3 and Persona 4 were really what put this game on this franchise on solid footing for people, much like SMT3 did for the Shin Megami Tensei stuff. And to be fair, some of the people working on this stuff were the same people kind of working on them. But again, they share similarities, but they are different. But if it's for me, I would say Persona is my preference. That being said, there's nothing wrong with liking SMT, but knowing enough about either can get you into the door of the other one because the gameplay shares a lot of similarities, and the same could be true for Persona 5. If you're coming into Persona 4 Golden because you found that they released them on the modern consoles again, now that, you know, the remake for 3 happens next year, you're not really going to need to play P3P unless you want to play the female MC route. But I think the design leaves a lot to be desired, and I do believe that the remake will at least do a better attempt at a definitive version. Still, I think FES is where you're going to want to go if you can find a PS2 or a PS3 version on the PS2 platform. I guess that's why people were frustrated by that, which I can understand. Going all the way through the remake, and maybe they have the answer, maybe they have the Persona 3P content. I doubt they will. So who knows? But by and large, if you've played any of the 3, you kind of know where we're going. So a lot of the stuff about Persona 4 is going to seem very similar to what I talk about in Persona 5. Done from the lens of a game that is 10 years earlier. So it shares a lot of physical resemblance to 3, but done in a different way. But they also make a lot of quality of life changes, which, again, gets extended into Persona 5. So as a primer for me, what I'm going to say is Persona 4 has the best characters, Persona 5 has the best visuals and music and sound design, and I think tone-wise, Persona 3 is the best because I like that really dark, dystopic vibe that it has. I don't think remake is going to change that, but I do think that Reload is going to at least introduce people to what I already knew, is that Persona 3 is great and has some rough edges, which I think drive people up the wall. Because you have to remember that Persona 4 was the one, I think Persona 3 is the one that got it on the map. Persona 4 was the one that critically everybody enjoyed and commercially people enjoyed. Persona 5 is the one that everybody enjoyed. Almost so to the point that Atlus is pulling a Final Fantasy VII with Persona 5 and just doing a number on the franchise, giving too much. Which, again, is fair. Anyway, talking about Persona 4, the plot involves you, Narukami, voiced in what small way a silent protagonist or dork face can be, voiced by Johnny Young Bosch. And he goes from the city into Inaba, just a rural town with nothing to do except there are murders happening. Oh boy! And he ends up befriending some of his classmates, and they try to figure out what's going on, and they fall into the TV world. So the classmates in questions are Yosuke Hanamura, voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, Chie, voiced by Aaron Fitzgerald, and Yukiko Amagi, a little later, voiced by Amanda Wynn Lee. So Yosuke is the dork of the party. And I don't mean dork as in mean-spirited, but dork as in... It really... Because there is a difference. There's a difference between Junpei, Ryuji, and Yosuke, and they're all different. Junpei tries hard, but feels very determined to be better than he is. Ryuji's just a fucking asshole most of the time, and tries to use his... stupidity as a crutch, I guess, to lash out at people, which is annoying. Yosuke's a conniving asshole sometimes and will do things that, like going into a department store and saying, hey, okay, we're going swimming? Okay, here's a swimsuit for the party members. Oh boy. I'll sign them up for a beauty pageant. Like, he does have his moments of levity where he's trying to be kind of the de facto main character, but it kind of drives you up the wall and makes him unlikable. And it's not to due to the performance, because obviously Yuri Lowenthal is great at pretty much anything, except when he's tasked to being Alucard in Symphony of the Night, but whatever, that's just not the role for him anyway. But Yosuke is just sometimes a prick for his own good, but unlike Ryuji, he actually apologizes when he fucks up. Most of the time, like when he said, Nanako, hey, I'll make, like they challenged him to a food battle and say, hey, I'll make something that rivals your mother's cooking, and Nanako's like, I don't have a mom, like, and at least he apologized. I'll give him that much. So for every moment that he has of stupid shit, he's a reasonable, understanding person. That his problem is that he wants to use the murder case as excitement because he's bored out of his fucking mind, which is dumb. He wants to try to get a scooter or a motorcycle to pick up girls because he thinks that's a good plan. It's dumb. What's not dumb is Chie. Chie is amazing. Chie is great. She kicks things really fucking hard. And did I mention she kicks things really fucking hard? Because that's what she does. She likes kung fu movies. She likes food. She eats food. She kicks stuff really fucking hard. She punts things into space. She kicks people in the nads. And yeah, she kicks people in the face. And it's great. And her friend is Yukiko Amagi, who's the Haru of this situation, where she's nice, but the benefit is Yukiko gets a lot of stuff at the beginning of the game, and I think she gets fleshed out as a character that has like this crazy laugh, which is an infectious thing. Yukiko gets moments of levity, which I don't think people understand, or I don't think she gets a lot of credit because Chie and Naoto and Rise are just bigger personalities, but Yukiko has her moments, like in King's Game where she gets drunk and just has fun with it and laughs her ass off. That's personas and kick the shit out of shadows, you know. Or the fact that she has this crazy slap that can be heard around the world and hurts people. It's my jaw, you know. so she's kind of oblivious. But again, she's there to be the healer and to be the nice girl and, the smart girl. And, I mean, there's enough to her. The idea that she's chained down by being an owner of an inn, or at least in waiting. But she is there to give her that pep in her step because she is such a brazen personality. So they work off well each other. And then they start getting more and more characters. They get Kanji Tatsumi, voiced by Troy Baker. Amazing. You get Rise Kujikawa, voiced by Laura Bailey. Did I mention this voice cast is amazing, by the way? And Naoto a lot later. And Naoto's voiced by Anna Graves in this version. She went through like 3 or 4 different voice actors. Chie changed once. Tracy Rooney was in the original, and I liked her version because it was very soft spoken, and it didn't work great in battle segments. I think Aaron was good for battle segments, but not so much for the talking stuff. But Naoto went through like 3 voice actresses. It was weird, and then Teddy rounds things out, and he's voiced by Sam Riegel, who is in Critical Role. He's done Phoenix Wright, and he was voiced by Dave Wittenberg, who did Kafka in Dissidia and a bunch of other things. Like I said, the cast is great. But anyway, Kanji is one of the best characters in the game. Not my favorite, but a lot of people will put Kanji as the best character, and I can see why. Kanji's whole thing is that he is frustrated that girls don't like him because he's a dude that likes to sew because that's his livelihood as a textile shop son. He does home ec stuff, he builds things, he sews things, and people call him just awful things. Dudes don't want to be around him, so he puts up this front of being a badass. Turns out he kind of is, but doesn't really know how to deal with it. And his interactions with people are just some of the best because he'll just want to be liked by people and want to be accepted, but being ostracized because of your hobbies and things, it's really unique. And as I said with My Dress Up Darling, there's a character, like the whole character arc is the main dude being ostracized for for basically creating dolls. Kanji manifests in the strangest way, being a boss fight that veers into the homophobic, or at least I think the plan was to tap into the homophobia that was definitely present 10 years ago, still kind of is in Japan, and they weren't as... I think in Japan, they just flat out said he was homosexual. In America, especially at the time, they retranslated it to be unsure. Again, a lot of Yosuke's problem is that he likes to poke the bear and say, hey, Kanji, are we going to be safe with you? And it's like, dude, fuck. It's not funny. It wasn't funny 15 years ago. It isn't funny now, and it's really annoying, that... And again, that translates to the way they're writing Yosuke, and it's more so the tone. The fact that they would play that for comedy as much as they do is like, will he, won't he? It really kind of... Other times, when he's just by himself with the main character, you don't get a lot of that problem. And again, a lot of the interactions with Naoto is neat because they kind of veer like Kanji and Naoto together, especially when Naoto becomes, opens up out as a female. Though in my playthrough, I was, linked up with Naoto. But they play it for laughs, and some of that is the funny part because they veer on the, okay, does he like Naoto, that she's a girl? No, he likes her because they were around each other and they kind of like each other, so it has nothing to do with homosexuality or whatever. So Kanji is good because he kind of wanders back and forth, and most of it isn't really even his fault after the big reveals. So it's more, how does the game process how he acts? And again, this is a point out against Yosuke as a character because he's being such a dick to people. Rise is the life of the party, as you would expect an idol to be. Her whole thing is that she doesn't know whether the public face that she puts on is the real her, so she goes back to the city of the murders, which is her hometown, and gets kidnapped herself, like you do, and she faces the whole, okay, I'm not myself, and I'm not this, so I basically become a Technicolor stripper with an antenna for a face. Don't ask me. Did I mention she's 15 or 16? Because that's not even more creepy as it is. And I thought Riku at 15 having people see her ass every 5 seconds in Final Fantasy X wasn't strange. No. Rise on a stripper pole at 15 and 16 is strange. But yeah, they're playing into the idea that Rise is just messed up because she doesn't know what's real and what's not, and some of it gets frustrating here and there, but you get to like her because, again, Laura Bailey was amazing. Like, I knew who Bailey and Baker were before I played this, but it's like, god damn, it's such a perfect thing. And I know that they replaced her when Bailey got, bigger roles and stuff, but it's just like, man, it's such an invigorating presence. Her entire thing as a support character was enhanced in this version, and I'll go over that again in the battle system stuff, but suffice it to say, Rise turns this game into a bit of a joke. Not as much if you don't work at it, but still, you can kind of raffle stomp the game based on some of the buffs that she gives you, if you're willing to put in the effort for her social links, so bear that in mind. Naoto is amazing and is my favorite character. A lot of it does have to do with the reveal. Again, I've said as much. I am a fan of like female characters, especially ones that are more like badass, and a lot of it does have to do with Persona when I started playing them because of the dating sim mechanics and all that. But I do think I've always had a fondness for stories about female characters being either main characters or going through issues, and Naoto certainly goes through an issue, because the only time I'd ever seen a reveal like that was Ferris from Final Fantasy V, and again, this was back in 1991, 1992. They didn't do as much with the Ferris thing as they could have. If they ever end up remaking 5, they might go into a bigger detail, but they kind of do it, they gloss over it, it's done, and Ferris is just awesome from that point forward. Naoto goes through a little bit more. She goes through the, like, she's the last party member, so you gotta get her a lot of stuff near the end, but they put her in early enough as the conduit for a lot of story shenanigans as a detective that you feed her into the narrative more and more. That's why I think she gets a lot more love than Haru did from 5, is that Haru didn't get shit until she had to in her story arc, and after a while, like, her character just fades into the background like Yukiko does. So Naoto doesn't fade into the background. She ends up becoming the smartest member of the party because she's a detective, but then they play it for laughs and they do some weird cliches like, oh god, she straps her boobs and whatever. But you can play around with her social link, which is cool too. Like, you don't have to pursue her as a romantic option. You can actually reverse her character arc, which is rare because Persona 4 didn't allow you to do that in most cases, so you have to work harder for her social link. You had to do the leveling up a couple of stats to max to even get to her late in the game, and I found myself struggling to even get to the finish line of that social link, but I did. And I was rewarded with, hey, Naoto is a girl. She wears, female outfits and stuff, and that's whatever, and I think the idea at play is a male-dominated society and people trying to fuck around with her as this child, being in out of her depth and saying, just get out of our business, you don't know what you're talking about, you're trying to do way too much, and it drives her up the wall, and her inner self, who's trying to still be a child and still trying to do fun things, it manifests in her social link. A lot of weird gadgets and stuff that supposedly stolen from her estate is just kind of littered around the city in these like weird riddles. And as you get to know Naoto a little bit more, she starts to soften up, and it becomes a thing where the real her, the female her, the detective her, much like Rise kind of, is all coalescing into one different kind of character. It's not brazen like Chie, it's not demure like Yukiko, and it's not in your face and just lovable like Rise is. Naoto kind of fits that role, and again, a lot of characters do fit specific roles. I will say cliches in a way, yes, but I do think Persona is allowed to explore the cliches a lot more, and when they do explore them, they find out that the characters themselves are way more likable than they appear. Teddy rounds out the party. He's found by Yosuke and Chie and Narukami, and he's a shadow-esque thing. He looks like a bear because he was trying to be everybody's friend. He grew himself a body in there, so instead of his Teddy suit made of teddy fur, he grows himself a cute boy's body, like you do, and uses that to his advantage because holy goddamn shit, is he a pervert to end all perverts. It is ridiculous how much he does. But again, every time he's out of that outfit and when he's not speaking, you look at him and go, why did he grow himself a 10? It's like, this is unfair, and it's just like, god damn it, if you just weren't Teddy. And that's the tagline for his entire character. If you weren't Teddy, he is the most annoying character in this game. Yosuke has his moments of being an asshole, but he's still got some redeeming qualities. And Teddy tries. He's amnesiac. He doesn't know that he's a shadow. He's trying to find his way in the world, but they overuse bear puns. They overuse him trying to be an idiot. They overuse him being dumb, and they overuse him being a pervert, which is just exhausting. And it doesn't help that if you use him in the party, which I didn't for my playthrough, he has this walk in his bear suit with blip, 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 just squeaky shoes. And it's just annoying. But whatever. Teddy is what Teddy's going to be, and that's where Teddy's going to be. But we're not done with the characters just yet. So as long as the murders are going on and you're finding characters and you're doing other things, you can find your social links. And some of them are within your family, some are with people around town. So while you're doing all the murder bullshit, you learn about other people. And most importantly is Narukami's family, with his uncle Ryotaro Dojima, which, voiced by JB Blank, and Nanako, voiced by Karen Strassman. And I have said this from day one. I have said that Nanako and Dojima are my favorite characters in this game. And specifically Nanako, because it's that sort of calming, cheerful presence that you need every single day when you're done with your stuff. It's that, hey, I know that I'm back home with people that I know and respect, and you can venture into the social link as much as you want. But knowing where the game and the plot go, knowing that Nanako gets kidnapped and Dojima gets injured, having them build up as social links and having them feed together. It's one thing that Nanako's whole thing is about who's her real father, why is my mother gone, all that stuff. Because Nanako has a story that is just amazing. And it helps that she is just there to be a nice girl. And I've said this as much. I'm not a fan of bratty kid characters, specifically people who are in the party doing as much damage as you. Like Ken for Persona 3. No. I get it. He's trying to do self-defense and he's trying to be self-sufficient, and he's not supposed to be as good as the rest of the party. And I don't care how much he trains. He's annoying, and I wish he was gone. Nanako steers clear of that problem because she's not the strongest party member of the game. She's not even a member of the party. She's just there to be your cousin. And she's nice. And she's always there with a smile. She's like, hey, I did something in school. Or, hey, let's go out to have fun. Or let's go to Jeunesse. And she just wants somebody to be around her and think that she's useful. Because Dojima is always hesitant to take her out places because of the murders and because of what happened to her mother, which is reasonable. But he's overbearing and overprotective, and it shelters her to an extreme degree, so that when the rest of the party says, hey, let's just go to Jeunesse, hey, let's go eat some watermelons, hey, let's have a party, Nanako just gets this smile on her face, and it's just refreshing that she is the conscience of the group, and the game slowly feeds into that and then ends up playing on those emotions and having her as a damsel in distress kind of for one of the later dungeons. So Nanako and Dojima are my favorite characters. Alongside them is Adachi, also voiced by Johnny Young Bosch. He is one of the main villains, surprisingly. And I said this when I did the review when I was going through that dungeon. They do enough with Adachi that it doesn't seem out of nowhere, but they also know that they've got other stuff planned, so they're not giving him like the top billing. They're giving him the I'm just doing it for the fun. Yeah, you're a dumb fuck, you know. And I didn't pursue his story arc or his social link more really because I didn't really want to do the bad ending stuff because I was having to do all the Marie stuff and Nanako and all the other stuff like Naoto and whatever. I wouldn't have time for the Jester Arcana, but it would also fly in the face of Narukami as a character if he was to let Adachi go. I do think it's a little quick. Like, as soon as they figure out that Adachi's the bad guy, he doesn't even try to avoid it, or they push the issue and then music, and it's just like, oh god, they are really forcing it. Like, as soon as they figure out he's the guy, the game just assumes, nope, you've done it, boom, you know, which is fair. I do that sometimes with D&D stuff when my party figures out that my plan is what it is. We just shunt on to the next thing. But Adachi tries to play the fool, but in fact, he is the culprit behind the murders. But the game is smart. They feed you little things here and there that Adachi is always around town and always watching and stuff for a reason. His motivation is fairly weak and flimsy in the sense that I'm just watching for the fun of it because this is boring and now I've got to... It's Yosuke on steroids, basically. Yosuke if he actually hurt people, you know. It's like, this place is boring and I'm just downtrodden and whatever, but Adachi plays himself as a dork and like, I'm not really doing anything, but he knows that you're in on it, and even before Dojima does, and tries to stop you here and there, and actually does succeed on a couple of occasions to kind of mislead the party as a cat and mouse game. But again, he's not the main villain. The character that gets involved in the Persona 4 Golden situation is Marie, voiced by Ian Regal. And Marie, I originally didn't like a whole bunch because she just comes off as a bit of a tsundere prick, which he does, and she does the stupid poems, and some of them are raps for some reason, which is even worse. But they give her enough at the intervening points after Adachi's dungeon and before the finale to kind of explain who she is. And her whole thing is, the guy before Adachi, Namatame, is Kunino Sagiri. Adachi is being, I guess, influenced by Amano Sagiri. And then I believe is it Kusumi no Okami, which is another god being. And you find her in this extra dungeon, which has got all these crazy ass mechanics, and you know, takes away your energy and takes away your items, and all is kind of hard, but it's not really all that hard. It's more kind of a cutscene dungeon kind of thing, where even her boss fight is kind of, but Marie is trying to piece together who she is, and then she finds out that she's trying to keep the party from dying, and you know, will cost her life. The party says, no, we want you to stay alive, so we'll just kick the shit out of you and let the other part of you go away. And it turns back into the main part of the main evil bad guy, I guess, is Izanami, also voiced by Karen Strassman. And I remember figuring out that the person you meet at the beginning of the game posing as a gas station attendant of all things is the main villain of the thing. It's a very subtle and thing you wouldn't even notice. It's little things like that. Again, much like Adachi or much like Naoto's whole thing, where they give them enough presence, but they don't tell you anything. Really, the only thing you know is that the gas station attendant only shows up when it rains or it's lightning outside, or when it's in fog. So that's tip off that you maybe wouldn't even notice if you tried until you've played it. Only shows up when you reveal that that's the thing that you're going after, that gas station attendant. You don't even know that she's part of Marie because she shows up in the original version as the final boss, but Marie acts as kind of a middle ground, kind of an Easter egg, because you already know who the main boss is if you play the first one, but now you get the Adachi stuff, then you get the Marie stuff to fill in the gaps as who's going on, and then she will just flat out spell it out, and then you find Izanami, and her whole thing, like, the game does a school trip, and one of the teachers gives you the in-game and in-world lore of Izanami and Izanagi. It's a Japanese folktale about the creation of the world, and you wouldn't even think about it. But again, Persona and SMT are all about gods and their machinations. And yeah, teenagers fighting gods. Izanami's whole thing is that people just want to live in ignorance and are blind to the realities of life and how harsh it can be. So let me just deal with it. Let me just have you die, for lack of a better term. And you end up fighting her as the manifestation of people who have avoided the clouding of their judgments and all that stuff. And I think Izanami's a decent enough presence and a decent enough, bad guy that it makes sense. Just this woman dressed in all white funeral garb, basically. It's like ceremonial funereal garb, and it's just kind of tracks. All white, which is the symbol of death in Japan. That sort of it's kind of she's actually just this rotting corpse of a skeleton lady. It's like I can see that, So she does have a presence, and it's more befitting of again, she comes out of nowhere, sort of. So it's hard to justify. Okay, you're trying to find Adachi again. His motivations are kind of flimsy, but the game is good enough to give you, here's a godlike being you have to fight. And it's not like Necron where it's out of absolute nowhere, as the final boss happens. That would have been the Amano Sagiri thing. They give you another one, and they give you a dungeon to fight through so you can kind of process the story of Izanami fucking around with this to stimulate the town to try and poison it and then screw over humanity and recreate it, basically. So you're given somebody to fight, and I do think it's effective to get them to that point. And speaking of effective, we get to the battle system, and most of the stuff from Persona 5 persists. Because again, this was created before Persona 5, obviously, but they take a lot of the stuff from 1, 2, and 3, and they just retool it. And unlike 3, which had 3 damage types, blunt, slash, and pierce, they had just one physical type. It doesn't have the psionic damage, the gun damage, the light and dark as attacks. They have light and dark as instant death shit. But they retool every character to do more things. Chie is more physical oriented, but she has some physical skills. I think Naoto veers away from just doing instant death and almighty to being all encompassing elemental damage, so she can attack any weakness, which is very handy. They add in a lot of extra buffs that Rise can learn, double techs for certain characters. I know I kept using Chie and Yukiko, and they would keep using theirs. Naoto and Kanji have their own. I think Yosuke and Teddy do as well. There's follow-up attacks, which are cool. Also included in Persona 4 Golden is the idea that people can kind of ride in as cavalry and just do not all out attacks, but prep all out attacks with some damage. Just cool stuff like that. And the beginnings of, hey, you can wake up a knockdown ally, you can help them recover from some status ailments. They don't have stuff like baton passes, and it's not as flashy as Persona 5 was, but it's still the same. Find a weakness, do the mechanics, do the thing, and not much has changed. So if you started with 5 and you're thinking of going back into 4 and you're like, okay, well, I like this gameplay. It's like, yeah, if you liked the gameplay of any SMT game ever, you're probably going to like this. You know, if you played any Persona game ever, you're probably going to be fine. That's the benefit of having the same kind of stuff over and over. So Fusion, much like Persona Fusion from 5, and this was, I think either this or Devil Survivor was the first game to give you the options of changing what skills you wanted as you did them. Persona 4 Vanilla and Persona 3 had random allocations, and it would drive me nuts going in and out of the menu trying to find the perfect or somewhat perfect skills when you could just pick what you wanted. I get why they would do that. They wanted to avoid you just taking all of the nullification passives or observe passives and make an absolutely killer character that can't be hit by anything. But it's like, give me that option. I've already gone through the game. You should let me do it, you know. Or making a character with the best base attack damage or a certain attack type and just buffing that kind of damage, or, you know, instant death protection up the ass while I'm doing all the damage there, or just passives to avoid, you know, SP regen, you know, stuff like that. I spoke about Risei before. And this is a game, I don't even think Futaba is as egregious in Royal as Risei is in Golden, because Risei gets like 10% SP recovery, 10% HP recovery, avoids instant death or any death attack at once. She can shield you from damage, she can buff you from damage, she can heal you, she can give you charge and mind charge, she can give you all sorts of fun stuff, and sometimes 2 or 3 times during your own set of turns. So yeah, Risei is crazy. And again, that's part of the thing you don't have to do, but you can do if you follow her social link. Again, there are social links everywhere. I didn't focus on a lot of the minor arcana other than Sayako the nurse, but you have the same set of social links. By and large, it's more the party members that are the best ones. I think 5 has some really good minor arcana characters that are very good, including, you know, Kawakami, which stands up as some of the best. I do think Persona 3 has the weakest. Persona 4, I think, has my favorites, which are Kanji, Nanako, and Dojima. Nanako and Dojima together are the best. Nato's is good. Kanji's is good. Some of the other people are kind of there. Yumi was a good surprise. She was one of the few I did focus on. A girl trying to deal with acting, but also dealing with a father on a terminal illness. That was kind of really rough. But there were some other ones that were just kind of there and, you know, not all that exciting, so I can't focus on all of them. But by and large, I'd say Persona 4 and Persona 5 are pretty equal in the regards of how strong the social links are. I found that the party member social links in this game are better than the party member social links in 5. But the minor arcana ones, like Kawakami and the politician guy, are stronger social links in 5 than the ones in 4, because I don't think 4s are all that impressive. Sayako's good and Yumi is good, but everybody else is kind of, you know, but that's personal preference. But you do one set of social links, you kind of know what you're in for. 5 puts a lot more emphasis on buffing your stats and buffing your passive stuff than 4 does, but 4 did introduce, like, hey, you can, you know, buff a character's stats, or you can take a mortal blow for yourself, or you can push a character out of the way and take damage, or, you know, heal status effects, that sort of stuff. If you level a main character stuff there, you can also do new personas, which is neat. So again, a lot of the stuff 5 did, Persona 4 did first. Again, that's kind of the idea. But I still think Persona 4 is done well enough on its own, even though it's following Persona 3's script, that in 2 years' time, they changed a lot and it made for a better combat system. The music, though, I'm gonna say the music is a mixed bag. It doesn't have the It doesn't have the through line of the 60s or 70s pop jazz or pop organ or, cool, I don't know how to describe it. The organ sound you hear in every song. Like, it's not as upfront and always there. It's not a defined theme like it is in Persona 5. And a lot of it has to do with a lot of pop songs. The battle themes are good, though. I will shout out the boss and battle themes are really good. Specifically the Fog and Genesis, but the Almighty is also good. New World Fool is really good. Any boss theme is really good. The theme song for the Heaven dungeon is good. But speaking of dungeons, getting back to the battle system, sort of, in the battle segments, I guess, you don't have full-on dungeons. You have procedurally generated floors. It's not as bad as Tartarus, because that's the only dungeon in the game you're ever going to have, but it goes into kind of the first negative about this game is the familiarity breeds contempt, I would say, where the loop in the game is its own detriment sometimes, because much like Persona 5, it starts very slow. Persona 3 started slow too, but not the 2 to 3 hours kind of slow in 4, and not the 4 to 6 like in 5. It's a very deliberate loop, and I said this when we got Naoto. There was like a month long, even like I think it's 2 months, honestly. It's a 2-month lurch between Naoto's dungeon and Nanako's dungeon, and it feels very annoying, let's say. Another annoyance, not just the gameplay loop of socialing time, dungeon time. If a lot of people are kind of like, where's the dungeon? Where's the fighting stuff? Where's the socialing stuff? Again, it's a good, perfect mix of 50-50 or 60-40 if you choose, but getting through one of those to get back to the other bit, unless it's specifically like you've been through this over and over, you're kind of like, The game does force you into the plot hole, much like 5 does with Morgana, where, go to sleep, check the Midnight Channel, do the thing. Once you get into plot mode, you're in the plot mode, the JRPG mode. There's no getting out of the. There's might be 1 or 2 days of social link stuff, but nah. So you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck doing what you're doing until you get back to the social link stuff. So it's an investment to try and beat the dungeon so that you get right back into the thing that you're doing. So not everybody's a fan of the Persona loop or the early game Persona stuff, or specifically for me, the late game. The late game stuff, I had a lot of 50-minute episodes, hour-long episodes, mostly just due to plot, but there are segments of, why are there so many cutscenes, I've seen that on Reddit for stuff like Yakuza, which is fair. Yakuza does the same thing. Yakuza Like a Dragon, they have long cutscenes too. I don't think people are as familiar with games like Persona, like Yakuza. They're not used to having the game rip you away to tell you a story. So if you're not a person that likes long ass cutscenes and all the character stuff getting you away from the combat for too long, this is not the game for you. But if you invest in the character stuff and don't mind it, and like I'm doing the social link stuff now. Oh, okay, now I'm doing the plot stuff. It's fine. Let's see. This one says, Teddy is a perv. Fucking bullshit. Yosuke and Teddy are annoying. I'm just going to say that. Yosuke is a perv because he's a teenage boy. Teddy's a perv because he doesn't know any better. But my God, is it not... it just gets old. If Teddy's out of his bear suit, it's him being a perv in public. If Teddy's in his bear suit, it's him being a perv or saying stupid bear puns. And it's just... bleh. I want to like Teddy. I do. The amnesiac guy is just trying to find his way in the world and trying to find friends. It would be fine. If a little boring, but at least he wouldn't be aggravating every 5 minutes. The only time he's not annoying is the beauty pageant, because they turn a positive into another positive. They say, okay, he's a 10, right? He's this absolutely cute boy because he made himself that way. Let's put him in an Alice costume and just have this guy hit on him, or the girl saying, that's a boy? I hit it. That sort of funny joke. That's a funny ass joke, because Teddy wasn't involved with being a perv. And then 5 seconds later he says, it's a swimsuit competition. Yeah. Like, do we really need the swimsuit competition? No, we don't. So I'll go right into that as another disclaimer. This game uses a lot of anime cliches, and I said this in the Tales of Arise playthrough, where, oh hey, we're doing that stupid bathing scene again. Have fun with that, because it's the same fucking bathing scene over and over. It's like, and I wondered when we were doing it, like, do women really do this? Do they go like 5 or 10 people all at once and they say, ooh, your skin is so smooth, you have boobies? Like, I really don't think that's how people bathe in hot springs. And I'm not even saying it's annoying that it's a hot springs episode. Like, I've seen shows that live in hot springs episodes and they don't. I mean, they do, but they don't. But it always revolves around dudes peeping. Like, it's never any different. There's never like any. And it is weird when they do hot springs episodes and they don't do that. But Persona 3 and Persona 4 both pull that shit. Persona 4 even like kind of reuses Operation Babe Hunt for Persona 3, which was dumb in the first place. The only reason I liked Operation Babe Hunt in the first place was it introduced Aigis, and I'm like, I did not need to try to hit on girls I'm never going to meet again except for Aigis, and she's an android, so okay, whatever. But it's like, I mean, Aigis is great, but anyway, we don't need an in-city version of that. And the problem is they added it in the Persona 4 Golden version. That part, the anime Hot Spring, the Hot Springs episode, was part of the original Persona 4. That's fine. Persona 4 Golden added the scene where they are in the city and they do Operation Babe Hunt over again. And it's just, why? I mean, I get it. I'm 37 going on 38. I'm not the target market for, ha, you're horny, that shit. But it's like, how many times do you have to see a beach episode? How many times do you have to see a hot springs episode? How many times do you have to see... And the worst part is they do it twice. Right? When you save Marie, they go right back to the hot spring as if it wasn't bad enough the first time. They just don't spend near as much time on it. But it's just like, fucking hell, And the whole thing of women can't cook and that's played for laughs. Again, if it's like the first time you've seen that trope, Persona 4 does it okay. But that has more to do with the characters that are at play rather than the story. Like, it's non-story. It's a filler, stupid bullshit anyway. Yukiko and Shie can't cook, so Yosuke and you are hungry and pissed off at them. Oh boy. And, whatever. So it's just a stupid running gag. I mean, it's fine, but I think the more that you see these cliches, the more you're just like, oh, I know where this is going. Let's wait another 10 minutes before we actually do something that isn't so stupid, So it is kind of there. The last thing I would say as a weakness is the hint system when you're opening dungeons. Outside of Yukiko and now Nanako, you have to find hints. I think Izanami's dungeon also avoids this. Adachi, you have to mostly just do plot stuff, but you still have to talk around. Like, I get the mechanic. You talk to people around town and you find information. But therein lies a problem with the game design. I spend, especially these kinds of episodes, like in the 70s, 80s range, trying to find bugs, to find fish. What I was trying to do was finish the Fox story arc. And I needed like the last possible day to do it, because not only did I not figure out the bug mechanic, there was no bug mechanic in Persona 4 Vanilla. You just had a rod and you didn't need bait, you didn't need bugs, you didn't need anything. You didn't need a prop to go fishing. You just did, talk to a dude, get a rod, go. You have to go through like 2 or 3 different things. You have to find a kid's bug catching net and then get a different bug from the floor or the ground. Then talk to a lady in Shiroku store to get you a thing to open up to get a fishing rod, to talk to the dude, to get the fishing and then do the fishing later and then get to Fox's Quest number 7 or 8 or whatever, do another couple finagles and do that shit. Then you open up the beach. Then you have to talk to the guy to actually find the guardian, because I there was an episode I had to edit out like an hour of footage because I kept trying to fish and I kept getting tuna. What ended up happening was I had to talk to the dude because he gave me the rod already, but he didn't give me the notice to actually get the sea guardian. I had to talk to the dude. It's the mechanic where even if you know the answer, if you don't proceed in the right exact order of talking to the exact NPCs to do the exact fucking... Like, if you've replayed a game, which I have, or replaying a game that you've done 10 or whatever years ago, if you don't know the exact mechanics to open up a flag, you spend hours trying to figure out why the fuck isn't this fish showing up? Why am I not seeing this? Because the dude in the thing didn't tell you about the thing to do the thing. Because, was that the guy with the Emma that you had to find? No, I didn't know. You know, it's those kinds of moments where even if you think you know how to do a thing, if you don't proceed in the exact manner that the game expects you to do, they don't have enough in the programming to say, all right, well, we gave you the fishing rod, maybe you should go find the fish. No, it's not enough that you don't have the fishing rod. You gotta show the guy the other thing, then you gotta this thing. Yeah, you know, you have to proceed in an exact, perfect way of doing the thing. And same thing with the hint system. You have to talk to the right person at the right time and maybe even a different day. Sometimes you have to spend 2 in-game days to try and find the right guy to do the right thing, to do the thing that you were supposed to fucking do in the first place. Even though you kind of know about the characters already, but you don't know enough. I like the idea of the hint mechanic, but the execution is dumb and an annoying hassle. Because you could have spent that time doing a social link. You could have spent time getting more money. But no, you have to open up a dungeon. Which I think is a breath of fresh air when you go right into Nanako's dungeon and you already know who she is because you've been around her every fucking day. You know? So that answers that problem. So again, I love me some Persona, but it's not without its foibles. And again, a lot of it has to do with I'm personally not an NPC talking type, and this was still kind of back in the... Like, 2008 was before they started doing the auto talk of NPCs, which you see in stuff like Tales of Arise and Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you just walk next to an NPC and they mostly do all the talking for you, unless it's a quest guy. So, yeah. Call it a problem of convenience, I suppose. I'm not the type of... If you're a person that likes to talk to NPCs, you'll probably never have this problem. If you're a lazy fuck like me, who doesn't like NPCs and got out of that habit because, hey, we moved on from, you know, and I grew up and I just don't care, you know, it is different. So, again, is it a biggest problem? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But positives. The changes in combat, as I said, because even from Persona 3 to Persona 4, giving everybody access to in-party control, in-game control. A lot of people hated Persona 3 because you could not directly control combatants. I understand that. I still don't think that's something that Persona 3 should be destroyed for, to the point where nobody really plays it anymore. But I do hope that Persona 3 Remake and whatever gets their due, because almost everything else about the game's great. But I understand directly, you know, because Loop 8's dealing with this problem now. Recently, I've heard that the AI is not done very well and they do stupid shit. I think that's really the problem, is if you're going to take away in-game control from the player, the AI has to be top-notch. And most of the time, unless you program them properly, they're not. But 4 was the first game in the Persona... Outside of Persona 3... Well, Persona 1 and 2 did. But Persona 3 did the thing where characters weren't receptive and weren't friendly to you, so you had to use macros and whatever to challenge their AI. 4 and 5 give you complete control, direct commands. Big lifesaver. But again, all of the buffs to Rise, all of the extra attacks that the party members can do, changes to the dynamics of the characters themselves and what attacks they do, going out and about and using, like, going on bike rides to change their skill set. Little things like that are cool. The social links are pretty good. Again, not perfect. Not every single social link is great, but I think by and large 4 has the best across the board. And they have my favorite ones, which are Nanako and Dojima. If you're going to do any 3 social links, I would say Nanako and Dojima together, because they fit together. They're the only social link I know that have ever done that. And then Kanji. Those are kind of the top 3. Yumi is a close second if you're going to do anything else. Naoto obviously is great too. Everybody else kind of filters into the pretty good or forgettable, but nobody's like outright bad. Persona 3 and Persona 5 have outright bad ones, which are just like Nozomi in 3 is bad. The Gourmet King, that was pretty fucking bad. I'm not a big fan of what was it, Shinya, the gamer kid. Like the last couple of his are really stupid, so I didn't really like him that much. But again, some are just there. If the worst you can say about the social link is they just exist, then but when some of them reach some of the best characters that you get, because 4 focuses more on the party. 3 gave you a way too many outside of the party things. Persona 3 Portable focused in on the party a lot more, which was also good, which is, I think, one of the reasons that people don't like the remake so much. But when you're gearing to the party and you give them such good material, it helps. And that would be the last thing I want to talk about, is the party dynamics. Well, actually, we'll get back to that. That's my favorite thing about the game. But tone. The tone of this game. The stakes. Persona 5 is kind of dark, but more about downtrodden adults. Persona 3 is about the end of the world and a cataclysm that we're trying to prevent and figuring out what Tartarus is and dealing with our own hang-ups, and it's very tragic. Persona 4 is very Scooby-Doo and very dumb and very happy-go-lucky, but it does have its moments of, that's kind of fucked up, so don't go into it thinking it's the heaviest shit you've ever dealt with, but remember that there are times where levity is good. The stuff with the school camp out and all the anime cliches and all that bullshit, it's there for levity, Not saying I'm a fan of the cliches, but you have to remember that a lot of that stuff is there to break the oppressive nature of the murder case. And even the murder case is kind of, like I said, Scooby-Doo-esque. It's not really dark. Persona 3 is very oppressive. It has this just not angst about it, but it's very dark. It's not there to make you happy. Nothing about it, outside of a couple of jokes here and there, are there to make you happy. It's not funny. This game is trying to be funny, and it helps when you have the character dynamics. Because this party is one of the best parties I've ever dealt with, because they all have some sort of stupid in them. Naoto is probably the least stupid, but she has her moments of, she has to be the straight man, for lack of a better term. Teddy is a perv. Yosuke is a perv and kind of mean-spirited. Chie just kicks all the ass, but she's dumb. Yukiko is oblivious to all the stuff, but she laughs and has fun and has moments. Rise's dumb, but she's enjoyable. Kanji's dumb. Like, these people were stupid. So they feed off each other. Their stupidity is infectious. It's the best way I would describe it. Their stupidity is what makes them characters. Their stupidity is what makes them lovable. Their stupidity is what makes them do stupid shit that teenagers may or may not do. Get in over their heads and do dumb shit, like go in a school camp out and make dumb decisions, and swim in a river that some dude's puking into, going to a bar and playing the King's game. How does Yukiko know about the King's game? Does she want to play it? Is she trying to play it? Rise's the one who suggests it, but Yukiko's the one who knows it, so they're the ones who get drunk. but they don't get drunk. They're drunk off the atmosphere. So they just do stupid stuff. Little things like the omelet eating contest and Nanako having to try all of the food and Risei's basically being inedible due to the spice. Little shit like that. Again, they're going for a lighter tone, but not so light that it's distracting. Sometimes there's a game, and I would say Xenoblade 2 for the majority of the run through until they get to the second half of the game is very Saturday morning anime. Let's just have some blinky lights and this dude has Zelda's power and that sort of stuff. It's like, what? I'm trying to remember Rex's, like, the really stupid scream he does. Oh God, I know that. That stupid, like, there is something really fucking dumb about this whole thing, that's kind of distracting, Same rule kind of applies to Persona 4, where it's a little too lighthearted for its own good and it's a little too obsessed with being an anime. I mean, to be fair, it's basing itself off anime, so sure. But there are lines, right? And sometimes seeing a giant robot maid being a boss fight is a bridge too far. Going to a fucking bathhouse and just having the stupid scene of, seeing people naked is kind of demure in that aspect. Because I'm not fighting anybody in a boss fight. I'm not fighting a giant robot maid out of nowhere. I'm not doing the anime cutscene of, hey, I won the fight, but I'm losing the battle, but I gained the superpower. Again, I'm using that as an example. There are levels, right? Persona 4 kind of fits in that, like, it's stupid and nonsensical, but still has some grounding in some form of reality sometimes, where it's, because different shows do different things, right? Again, I'm not trying to dissuade people from playing Xenoblade 2, but I think even most fans would agree that some parts of that, and other games do that shit too. So I'm just using that as an example, right? But again, there's a point where levity becomes annoying and Persona 4 veers into it a little bit, slowly breaks itself out. Every so often it'll break itself out of its mode and remind you that it's being there for a point. So it's trying to show you some levity. So these characters are bumbling idiots, and Narukami and Naoto as the linchpins of the not stupid brigade, But as frustrating as characters like Yosuke and Teddy are, they do have their moments because they're idiots, because they're perverts, because they do stupid shit. It's kind of fun, like a D&D campaign, that sense where, the logical thing to do would be not to do the stupid group date cafe. But then Risei walks in and goes, bye. Little stupid shit like that. Or, just little things you can do as characters. For every stupid cliche I've talked about, they proceed enough with the characters that are likable, and that's the point. If you build a narrative around characters that you like being around, or that they feel like they'd be around, they're enjoyable. Final Fantasy X is a good example. In a different way. Final Fantasy X is all about Yuna's pilgrimage, and then eventually Tidus' whole thing about breaking the cycle and whatever. But everybody's there for Yuna's journey, right? Everybody seems like they would be around each other for one reason or another. They don't feel like they're standoffish for whatever reason. Final Fantasy IX. Steiner fits, Zidane fits, Garnet fits, Vivi fits. Those four fit like together. They would be friends, or they would be around each other, obviously. They would be there for some reason. They'd be antagonistic and whatever. Freya is there to help, and Eiko eventually there, but under what reason would Quina and especially Amarant, why would those two stick with the party? Other than to fill out a spot, right? You need a chemistry. And if you don't have it, it doesn't work. This is some of the best chemistry interplay between characters I've ever seen. A lot of that translates, and it doesn't even translate just to the main group. It can translate to how they deal with Nanako or Dojima, or Adachi, and sometimes Marie, but Marie is kind of off in her own little world and it's just kind of there. But these 8 characters seem like people that would hang out and not just be there for narrative reasons, but actually because they're either school friends, or they've been friends, or they've helped each other out, or I'm throwing you a bone and having you stay in my home in exchange for whatever because we're doing this case, or I'm an idol but I'm here but you're helping me out, so it's cool, but you're also a student. Naoto fits because she's been around the party for a while and kind of interacted with Kanji, so Kanji has that through point with her. Kanji kind of interacts with Rise, but not a lot, but she interacts with, everybody interacts to each other in different ways. So it's a kind of a sliding scale, but never does it feel like it's forced. The anime cliche stuff, those plot points might be forced, but the dynamics at play between the characters don't seem forced. It sounds like these people would be around each other either as friends that started from the beginning or grew into being friends as the game goes on. Persona 3 kind of has you feel like a crowbar is wedged in here. 5 is kind of in between. But yeah, 3 is trying to tell a story of these people who are not meant to be friends at all and just kind of end up becoming friends due to their circumstances, and they become people, but they're not people that would hang out if it weren't for the end of the world bullshit, having powers. Persona 4 is these people are a bunch of school children or high school kids who do stupid shit on the weekends, but then they fight dudes in a TV. And it's great. But speaking of great, I think I've made it pretty damn clear that I've liked Persona 4 quite a bit, so I've gushed about it. Which makes sense. I would not be playing this game for 100 some episodes if I didn't. But again, would I recommend Persona 4? I think it's pretty obvious if I'm going to recommend this game, and I would recommend any of the Persona games, even the early ones. I would recommend any of the SMTs. Again, it's different for different people. If you want better characters, you go with 4. If you want an overall better experience, probably go with 5 because it's more streamlined and it looks better and it's visually impressive, and I don't think the characters stand out as much, but there it is. If you want like an oppressive but dark atmosphere and some good characters that are still there but they don't fit the friendship dynamic a bit more, and I think the gameplay is dated. We'll see what happens with Persona 3 Reload, but I don't think you should discount 3 either. So each of the games, much like a Final Fantasy game, still have something to offer you. It just depends what kind of style of game you're looking for. But that'll do it for me. And the next episodes we've got coming up are Space Battleship Yamato 2199 and 2022, and Xenosaga Episode 1. 2 different styles of space opera stuff. Hooray! One is an anime, one is a video game. They're all both good. After that, RWBY Volume 9, which was a good follow-up to Volume 8, but it changes the dynamic of where the characters are going, and the 2-year podcast anniversary. I think what I'm going to do with the podcast anniversary is talk about what I've been dealing with the last year, changing up the channel a little bit and having a lot more co-hosting with Lee Clips and what that's helped me do. Being able to do community polls, that's changed what I'm going to do, but also kind of go over like the best and worst playthroughs I've ever done. And I was going to do like top 5, bottom 5, but then I realized I couldn't really do bottom 5. So I'll probably just stick with like a top 3 and bottom 3. And if there's anything else I want to talk about, I will. But I won't belabor the point. I think people kind of already know which playthroughs I've kind of just soured on the more I've done them, and a lot of them are recent. Has more to do with the games themselves than anything that happened with me personally or anything. And again, the channel has been on an upswing lately, and I'm grateful for that. And what little way people have enjoyed this stuff, or whether they started early or they started in the last year or so when things have picked up and more people have watched me, again, in some small way, the fact that people are enjoying this is great. So that's what that episode's going to be about. It's just a reflection on the last year or so and what has changed, if anything. But again, that'll do it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Persona playthrough, and then you've enjoyed this one. You can always go back and watch the Persona 5 playthrough or the Persona 5 podcast, which I've also done already, and I'll get to Persona 3 in its own course once the remake comes out. So that'll be it for me. I'll see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.